She was hanging there in the open prairie like a message nobody wanted to read. Not a show, not a spectacle, just cruelty arranged with patience. Rough ranch rope bit into her wrists where they were bound above her head. One ankle was pulled high enough to twist her sideways, turning her balance into pain. The wind kept snapping at her torn dress, but it wasn't temptation in the air, only humiliation, the kind men use to announce power without firing a gun. Caleb Ward reined his horse so hard the animal snorted and skidded in the grass. At 49, Caleb had seen plenty. He'd watched men die in dust storms and saloon alleys. He'd buried his wife with his own hands and learned the hard way that grief has weight. But what stopped him cold wasn't the sight alone, it was the time it took to do this. Someone had planned it. He dismounted slowly, palms open, voice low. "Easy now," he said, like he was speaking to a spooked horse. "I'm not here to hurt you." The girl stirred at the sound of boots, her head turned weakly. Her eyes wide, exhausted, sharp with fear, fixed on the knife at his belt, as if it were the last thing she'd learned to hate. "Please don't," she rasped. Caleb froze instantly. He didn't reach for the blade. He didn't step closer. "I'm cutting the rope," he said. "Nothing else, I swear it." He kept his eyes on knots and fibers, nowhere else. No staring, no taking in her shame like a thief, just work. One careful cut, then another. The tension released. Her leg dropped, and her whole body trembled like it didn't remember how to belong to itself. Caleb caught her before she fell, only long enough to keep her from collapsing, and then stepped back like distance was part of respect. "You're safe for the moment," he said. The words tasted bitter even to him because the prairie was wide and empty and it never protected anyone. Whoever did this couldn't be far. He cut her wrists next. Angry red marks circled her skin where the rope had rubbed. She couldn't stand. Her knees buckled. Caleb took off his vest, held it out without looking at her face too hard. "Cover yourself, miss." She hesitated, then wrapped it around herself with shaking hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Caleb nodded once. "What's your name?" "Rose," she said. "Rose Delaney." It meant nothing to him yet, but the way she said it, like she was reminding herself she still existed, stuck like a thorn. "Who did this?" Rose's jaw tightened. She shook her head. "If I tell you, they'll kill you." "They already tried to kill you," Caleb said quietly. "They didn't finish. That means they wanted something." Rose swallowed, eyes hardening. "Land papers," she said. "They wanted a signature I wouldn't sign. So they made sure I'd remember why I should." Caleb exhaled through his nose, anger rising slow and steady. "Crow," Rose stiffened. "You know him." "Everyone knows Sealer's Crow," Caleb said. "He owns more dirt than God on a bad day." The wind shifted. Far in the distance, a thin dust line moved, too straight to be weather. Hooves, more than one. Caleb offered Rose his hand. "I live not far, cabin by the Cimarron. You can rest there." "Why are you helping me?" Rose asked. The question wasn't innocent, it was careful. Caleb adjusted the reins. "Because I saw something that shouldn't exist. Because if I ride away, I won't sleep again." Rose didn't hesitate this time. She took his hand. He helped her onto the horse with the kind of restraint that showed he understood fear. As they rode toward the river, Rose looked back once. The empty wooden frame still stood. The rope still swayed. And behind them, somewhere in that rising dust, men were already deciding how to finish what they started. Caleb's cabin, the first breath of safety, the cabin smelled of wood smoke and old coffee grounds. Familiar, simple, but even that couldn't hide the feeling that eyes were still on them. Caleb gave Rose water. She drank slowly, like she'd learned rushing could cost you. "You're safe here," he said. "At least until the next set of hooves shows up." Rose sat on the edge of a chair, still wrapped in his vest, still making herself small. "They dragged me from the wagon," she said after a long silence. "Didn't even talk, just ropes. Just laughing." Caleb didn't push. Some memories come out only when they're ready. "What were you doing out there?" he asked. "I wasn't alone at first," Rose said. My father sent me with a hired hand. We stopped near the trail. Two men rode up, said they were law. Caleb's jaw tightened. He already knew. They weren't, Rose finished. They searched the wagon, didn't find what they wanted, so they took me instead. Rose told him about her father's homestead, how it sat right where a new spur line was planned. How Crow wanted the land cheap or abandoned. I was bringing proof, she said, about how he gets signatures that should never exist. Caleb almost smiled at that, almost. Dodge City eats paper and spits out bones. That's why I needed someone they wouldn't expect, Rose said. A knock came then, not loud, not soft, just enough. Caleb's hand moved to the rifle by the door. He looked out the window, nothing but trees shifting in the wind. He opened the door fast. No one, but on the ground lay a freshly cut length of rope, same thickness, same cheap cattle rope. Caleb picked it up, felt the fibers, then threw it into the fire. It curled and blackened like a threat, burning slow. Rose watched his face change. They found us. Not yet, Caleb said. But they're close enough to breathe. He sat in a chair by the door that night, rifle across his knees, not sleeping, just listening. Because once you step between a woman and men who use rope to make points, there's no turning back. Dodge City and the trap dawn came hot and early, the kind of Kansas summer morning that already felt tired. Caleb saddled up with quiet efficiency, jerky, hard bread, water, and one spare piece of clean cloth, nothing romantic about it, just dignity. Rose climbed up behind him, still tense, still scanning the world like it owed her another attack. By late morning, Dodge City appeared, low roofs, hitching posts, dust sitting under a sky too wide for comfort. Caleb leaned slightly toward her. In there, folks smile for reasons that have nothing to do with kindness. Stay close. Let me do the talking. Rose nodded. They rode onto Front Street. Heads turned because Caleb wasn't famous, but Rose was, in the way people look when they've already guessed a story and are hungry to be right. At the livery, a man avoided Caleb's eyes. Across the street, another man stood in shade, pretending to study a poster. Caleb recognized the posture, rope hands, confidence like a bad habit, Jed raw. They moved anyway, calm, steady, like they belonged there. They aimed for the post office to send Rose's proof where Crow couldn't reach it. Inside, the clerk's eyes flicked between Rose and the street. "We are out," he said. "Out of paper in a post office," Caleb replied, a lie that thin usually means someone has already leaned hard on the truth. "We find someone with a spine," Caleb said. That's when trouble stepped in, one of Jed's men, smiling too wide, voice too loud. "Easy there, miss," he said, brushing close enough to make Rose flinch. Caleb stepped between them. "Move along." The man laughed and made it public, made it ugly, trying to turn Rose into a joke and Caleb into entertainment. Caleb tried once more to end it clean. "Back away." But the man reached toward Rose again. Caleb's restraint ran out, one clean shove, a punch thrown at him. Caleb slipped it and dropped the man with a single hard strike. The street went quiet for one heartbeat, then it went loud. Two more men rushed in. Dust kicked up. Boots scraped, somebody shouted. And then the voice that mattered, law behind it, even if the law was crooked. "That's enough," Deputy Virgil Knox said. Knox looked clean as a banknote. His hand rested near his revolver. His eyes weren't on the fight, they were on Rose. Caleb felt something cold settle in his gut. Two men grabbed Caleb from behind. "You are under arrest for disturbing the peace," Knox said. "That peace was already broken," Caleb spat. Knox smiled thin and nodded toward Rose like she was property that needed collecting. And Rose did something Caleb didn't expect. She ran into the crowd, between buildings, gone like a rabbit into brush. Knox didn't chase. He just smiled like a man who knew exactly where the trap closed. The jail, the plan, and the last turn inside the Dodge City jail, Caleb sat on a hard bench, listening to the town breathe through iron bars. Somewhere outside, a piano tried to sound cheerful and failed. Knox came in later, notebook in hand, voice smooth. "Where's the girl's proof?" he asked. "Where'd she put the paper?" Caleb didn't answer. Knox called in Jed raw like they were partners, like the badge was just another tool. Jed leaned on the bars. "We can't find the proof, but we can find her again." Caleb's jaw flexed, but he stayed quiet. Anger here would be used against him. Later, when the hallway went still, a whisper came near the bars. "Caleb." Rose stood in shadow, hair hidden under a borrowed scarf, face pale but steady. She slid a folded scrap through the bars. "Not the proof, a plan, Fort Dodge copy sent yesterday. Sheriff knows, Knox does not." Caleb breathed for the first time since her scream. "You did good," he whispered. "I had to," Rose said. "Before they decided, I was easier dead than scared." Footsteps echoed. Rose melted back into the dark like smoke. Knox appeared with keys, eyes sharp. "Who were you talking to?" "Myself," Caleb said, calm as stone. Knox stared, then unlocked the cell. "Get out, Ward. Crow wants this buried quiet. You ride out and forget the girl." Caleb stepped out anyway, not because he believed Knox, but because staying meant losing the next move. Behind the hotel, Martha Quinn waited, hard-eyed, fearless, the kind of woman who'd seen too much and decided she was done being small. She pointed. Rose was hidden nearby. They met at dusk near Cottonwoods, where the ground dipped toward water. Caleb handed Rose the clean cloth. She took it without comment. "We don't stay," Caleb said. Rose nodded. "They'll follow." They rode hard to the Cimarron crossing after dark. And there, right where moonlight made the water look like steel, Jed's riders caught up. Jed rode forward first, smiling like this was already decided. "You should have left her," he said. Caleb stood still, voice steady. "You left her breathing. That's where you made your mistake." Jed lifted a hand. "Bring her out." A man stepped forward, and a gunshot cracked the night. Not from Caleb. Not from Rose. From behind Jed's line, Deputy Knox rode into the clearing with his pistol smoking. "Nobody moves," Knox shouted. Jed spun. "What are you doing?" Knox laughed, wild, desperate. "Cleaning up." Caleb understood instantly. Knox wasn't here to protect Crow or Jed. He was here to erase witnesses. If everyone died in one messy shootout, Knox could sell whatever story kept his badge and his skin. Chaos exploded, riders scattered, horses screamed. Caleb didn't wait for hero moments. He grabbed Rose's hand. Now, they mounted and ran bareback fast, low, letting the river swallow the noise behind them. They didn't stop until stars were sharp and the horses trembled. Rose bent forward, breath ragged. "He was going to kill all of us." Caleb nodded, eyes on the horizon. "And he's not done." Rose stared at him. "Where will he go?" Caleb's voice dropped into something grim. "Crow's Ranch," he said. "Knox will run there, look loyal, look useful, then finish the job properly." Morning rose gray and unforgiving. In the distance, Crow's Ranch came into view, corrals, buildings, men moving like ants. And there, walking calm like the world belonged to him, was Sealer's Crow. Knox arrived and spoke close to Crow's ear. Crow stiffened. Then he turned his head and looked out across his land like he could stare hard enough to drag Caleb and Rose out of hiding. Rose's voice went small. "Are we going to die for this?" Caleb didn't lie. "We might." Then he looked at her, really looked. Not like a rescuer looking at a victim, but like one human recognizing another who refused to break. "But if we run every time fear shows up," he said, "fear becomes the boss." Rose let out a short, quiet laugh, not joy, just relief. Because she wasn't alone anymore. Caleb exhaled, made his choice. "We don't charge in," he said. "We don't try to win in one morning." Rose swallowed. "Then what?" Caleb's eyes stayed on Crow's Ranch. "We do the next right thing," he said, "and we do it steady." Rose reached into the oilcloth bundle under the saddle, just enough proof to remind them why they were still breathing. Then together, they turned their horses toward Crow's land, two small figures under a huge Kansas sky, carrying truth like a flame in the wind. And for the first time since the rope on the prairie, Rose felt something stronger than fear. Hope.